Let's take a quick look at how we can demonstrate how observables work by taking the same example we just worked on, but this time let's go over to the HTML and let's do two data binding operations. Not just to a span, but also one to an input. And for the input, we're going to bind to the value binding. So now on the right-hand side, you see Haley, and then Haley again. And I change Haley to Sam, and as soon as I tab out of there, the value changes. So we can see that we got two-way data binding because it's an observable. So as the input changes, it reports back down to the JavaScript right here, and that name property is observable. It gets changed, and then that's in the source, and that goes back up to the UI, and it gets bound to this HTML property right here in the span. Now what happens if we don't make that be an observable? So let's go back here and get rid of the observable property and just make it name. Now if we do that, over on the right-hand side, we still have bindings and they all work. When I change Haley to Joe this time, notice that the property changed here, but it did not change over there. What actually happened under the covers is Joe got changed in the input, and then it went down to the source object. So this name right here did get changed to Joe, but then it did not report back to the UI the things that are bound to it. So that's why this Haley up here still exists, because that's what's in the HTML element right here in the span. To further demonstrate that, why don't we come down here and just write a little alert to show to the screen when we do actually change this value. So let's go in the view model, and we'll create a function here called checkValue. And that function is just going to simply just check to see what's the value of the property inside of P1. And notice we can just say P1.name because, again, name is not an observable, so we can just alert out the value. Now we got checkValue here. We want to expose that to the UI so we can bind to it. So I put that in the return object of my view model. I go back to my HTML, and let's just create a button underneath the list. And in that button, let's go ahead and data bind to that expression. And there we go. So now we should have a button over here. I didn't put any text in it. I should do that too. The live preview's there. So as I change the value from Haley to Jim, now let's check the value. And under the covers, notice that the value is Jim. So what's happening is we are getting the value going from the UI back down to the JavaScript. But because it's not observable, it's not coming back up to the UI to anything else that's bound to it. So what this showed us is that the value Jim is actually in the object in JavaScript down here in P1.name, but because it's not observable, it didn't come back up. So let's go ahead and fix that again. We'll make it an observable of name right here. And if we do that, we're going to need to say check P1 name like that. And now if we change the value here from Haley to John, notice it flipped right there. And when we check the value, it is John under the covers as well. So by making it observable, we not only get the bindings going from the source to the target, but they also go to target to source. And when you're done with Plunker, you can save this off and then make it private or public. Or you can also pull down the files by clicking on the button up in the upper right-hand corner, download your Plunk as a zip file, and then it will save that off to your hard drive. And what's inside of that file, if we look at it quickly, is we can see inside of here is the HTML, the JavaScript, and the CSS that we just had on our page here. There's our JavaScript and our HTML and our little bit of CSS.